In this lesson, we're going to be talking about operating systems and specifically the Macintosh operating system, or Mac OS X. Now, Macintosh has been around since the early 80s, around 1984, and for a long time the operating system was reasonably stable up until the late 1990s, early 2000s, when the next operating system, or next step, was merged in with the Macintosh operating system, and now we have kind of a hybrid of what Mac OS used to be, along with a Unix-like operating system underneath. So it's a version of BSD with a mock kernel underneath the Mac OS, basically graphical interface. So now we have the user piece, which has been Macintosh, or is Mac OS. And there's also some things that you may not normally be able to see unless you know where they are and go digging for them. So first of all, this is the Finder, and this is the way that users of Mac OS typically go looking for files. So you can see it's kind of a typical, there's the side line over here where there's favorites, and there's shared, and there's some devices, and the main window shows you the contents of whatever piece that you're in over here. Now, under favorites, it's all really oriented towards the user. So I've got documents, I've got desktop, I've got shared, I've got downloads, I've got movies, music, pictures. That's really all oriented towards the individual user. Now, what I may want to do is go a little bit higher up, and I can do that. I can go to computer, and here's the primary hard drive. And you can see here I've got applications, which I also have over here under favorites. And I've got the library directory, where I've got application support, and application support is a useful directory because this is where all of the applications store data that's specific to them. And I've got my users directory here, and there's a system directory with a library. So this is what the top level of the hard drive looks like from a Finder perspective. Let me show you a little something different here. I'm in the terminal application here. And in the terminal application, I get command line access, and I can show you, if I go to the root of the drive here, I've got a number of different directories than Finder was actually showing me. So there's the applications directory and the library directory, and there's the users directory. However, you can also see here there's a bin directory and an etc directory, a home directory, opt, sbin, temp, and user, or USR. All of those directories were not visible when I went to the Finder because Apple doesn't want users to be able to see and manipulate what's going on in there, because these are directories that the operating system itself uses. So what I'm using here is something that's more common to Unix, which is a shell. And in this case, I am using bash. And with this shell, I can go into these different directories, and you can see here's a number of programs that are in the bin directory, and I can go into the etc directory, which is where there are system configuration settings on most Unix-like operating systems, and the same is true here as well. So I've got things like a host config file, a hosts file, and I've got an smb.conf file. The smb.conf file tells the operating system how it's going to connect to a Windows network and be able to share files and printers across a Windows network. So that's the etc directory. Now, the other thing that you wouldn't typically see anymore with the last couple of versions of Mac OS X is the library directory for each individual user. If I were to go to my directory in Finder, it would show you things like pictures and documents and applications. What I don't get there is this library directory, which has things like application support again. So the application support directory stores things. So here's an example. I can go into Firefox and I can go into profiles, and I'm going to go into the default profile here, and you can see there's a number of files in here, which again wouldn't normally be visible in Finder without doing a little additional work. And what's in here is you can see there's a cookies file here, which is a little SQL database of the cookies that are stored on your system. You can also see extensions are here and preferences, and there are a number of things that are stored in here for your particular user, which of course may be useful for a forensic examiner. This is where you would go to on a Mac OS X system in order to find the type of information that a user may not normally be interacting with directly, but the applications are storing on their behalf. So there are a number of directories in here in this application support folder that store information that, again, a user wouldn't normally directly interact with in terms of going and moving it around on the file system, but the applications are taking care of it for them directly. So you can see there's a Google directory, there's a Microsoft directory, and there would be data in here from Microsoft. So you would store things like user templates here. Somewhere under application support, there may be information about the user's mail and the things that are being stored there. So there's a lot of information in this application support directory that, again, Apple hides from the normal user, but a forensic examiner would want to be able to get to that information. Now, something else that you probably want to be able to get to is there's a program called Keychain Access, which is a really helpful program. And I've got it up here. You can see here in the keychain, there are a number of pieces of information. There's some certificates and some application passwords. And down here on the left-hand side in the left-hand column, I've got categories. So I can look at my certificates, which I don't actually happen to have any on here, but I can look at certificates, and these are the certificates that are stored on this system. So you can see all of these. Now you can also see here there's a passwords category. In the keychain for every user, there are passwords that are stored, and you can get access to these passwords if the operating system is storing them for you. So right here, I've opened up this particular thing. It's a VNC password, and if I were to click here, I could show the password. Now it would ask me to authenticate, so I'd have to type in my password in order to be able to get access to that. But here's a place where you can quickly and easily find passwords for particular users. You may also want to get to the console application. This is similar to the Windows event log, where there are system messages, and you can break it down into diagnostic and usage messages, which are here. And we've got system diagnostic reports you can take a look at. You can look at the individual files that the console brings up for you. But there are interesting messages that are sometimes stored in here where applications are writing out to log files with pieces of information that a forensic examiner may want or need. Finally, let's take a quick look at where the login items are stored. If I bring up System Preferences and go into Users and Groups, I've got login items here. So This is where programs and applications that are started up on a per user basis when the user logs in, that's where these are all stored and managed. So you can see the different programs that are being launched when a user logs in by going to this section of the system preferences. So that's where macOS stores different types of information that you may want to know how to get to as a forensic examiner.